it's Kiahonfire and welcome back to Conan Exiles. Today we're going to be looking at feasts. Now, feasts do different things. They aren't a fraction of what they used to be, but they are still a thing. So in this video, it's going to show you all about feasts, what they do, if they're worth it, and what would be the best one to make. And then what would kind of be the cheapest one to make that would be still very, very good. So let's get into the video. So we have a selection of feasts here today, and everything that says feast after it we'll be using for the video. So that's god feasts, or normal feasts like the savoury feast, or anything like that. To give you an example, I'll show you the big list right here to simplify that. So that's all the ones we're using in this video to give you a good general idea. And we'll start off with the god ones, the Feast of Set. Now, these aren't a fraction of what they used to be, because nowadays they only give like certain things like health regeneration and stamina. If you used to use feasts, you would have realised that they actually gave you buffs, like statistic buffs, in your attributes. But they don't do that anymore. They just give like, the HP, the water, the food, etc. You get what I mean. So for this one, we're going to test it when I put my HP down really low, and my water and food. This is how I'm going to give you a representation of what we're doing, so you can look at my UI and see how it is affecting these bars. So I'm using Hozav's UI mod for this to show you a better example of what we're getting from these feasts. So for the Feast of Set, it's going to restore us 75 hunger, 50 water, and 60 HP regeneration. And its special is stamina regeneration, which will cover over 5 seconds. This food is also a high grade food, which means it's going to be better at healing than a medium or low food. So that is the Feast of Set. Moving on to the Feast of Decado. This one's a pretty good one. The food it will restore is 100 water, and 110 HP regeneration. It is one of the highest ones out of most of them. And its special is stamina regeneration over 5 seconds. This is also a high grade food. You can see it's given us both 100% in our food and water bars all the way from 0. So it's a really good one at replenishing all of the bars. Next we're moving on to the Feast of Mitra. This will restore 75 hunger, 50 water, and 60 HP regeneration. Its special is stamina regeneration over 5 seconds, and it is also a high grade food. Now we'll try the Feast of Yogg. This one will restore 75 hunger, 50 water, and 60 HP regeneration. And you guessed it again, the special is stamina regeneration over 5 seconds. The grade also being high. So you can see some of the older ones, the old feasts actually mostly have all the same kind of statistics there. Now our next feast is a little bit different from the other feast because it has a different special. This is the Feast of Ymir. It will restore 75 hunger, 50 water, and 60 HP regeneration. And then its special is warming up. This is a strong warming, and the effect lasts for 1 minute 30 seconds. This is also a high grade food. Next we're on to the Feast of Jebel Sag. Now this is another one with a different special. It will restore 70 hunger, 40 water, and 120 HP regeneration, that being one of the highest, actually the highest out of all of our feasts. Its special is water breathing for 60 seconds, which is very different, so it kind of works like the underwater breathing potion, so it'd be good for underwater sprints, and the grade is also high. Next one on the list is Fiery Hot Sea Fish Feast. This one is quite nice to get because it's easy to make. It will restore 35 hunger, it will restore no water, but it will give 60 HP regeneration, and its special is warming up over 1 minute 30 seconds. Now the warming up on this one is like a normal warming effect, so it's the one in the middle, and it is a high grade food. Now on to our savoury feast. It will restore 60 hunger, 0 water, and it will give you 60 HP regeneration. The special is also warming up over 1 minute 30 seconds, and this food is actually a mid-grade food. Now on to the feral feast. This will restore 40 hunger, no water, and 40 HP regeneration. Its special is light warming for 1 minute 30 seconds, so that is the lowest of the warmings, and it is grade medium. Last and least, we have the exotic feast. This one's quite a banger. The hunger is restored to 100%, 0 water and 100 HP regeneration, and it will give off a strong warming effect. So that's the strongest out of all of the warmings. That will give you 1 minute and 30 seconds of that, and it's also high grade. So those are our feasts in general out of the entire list, and that's what they do. Now, the crafting costs of each of these may differentiate between different things and give you other things. So, some of them are more expensive for what they give you, and some of them are just plain out not worth making because they're so expensive and things do other things that are actually better. If you get what my drift here. So by far on my list in general, the best one I would say out of all of them is probably the Feast of Decado on stats alone. You can make it in a stove, but you will need honey bread, and you will need a cooked exotic shellfish, which is no problem to get, and you will need to make absinthe. So if you're willing to go through the labour of making these two to get a Feast of Decado, then sure, it will be good. But there you go, that kind of gives you an example. It is a good feast though, so it might be worth getting the honey bread and the absinthe. If we were to have a look at the honey bread, you can see we can make it in a stove for just some honey and bread. Bread isn't that hard to make, so it's not too bad on that side. And then the alcohol here, if we look at that, it's just leavening agent, purified water and glowing goop, so perhaps it's not so bad. If we have a look at the Feast of Jebel Sag, aka our best health regeneration food, you can see it takes ale, dried berries and blood sausage. Blood sausage is really easy. Dried berries is really easy as well, and then I guess your only problem would really be ale. Now ale takes hops and leavening agent, so again it's just an extra process. Those things aren't exactly hard to get. But you know, there you go, that kind of gives you an idea. And then we come to the Feast of Mitra. These are one of the ones that I actually say it's not worth doing, because you got herbal tea there. You've got soup, you've got honey. Soup's not too much of a problem. It can be a bit of a bummer. Lingering essence, no problem. Honey, no problem. My problem is when it comes to the herbal tea. I'm not going to lie, it kind of feels like a waste because herbal tea on its own actually gives 60 health regeneration, which is the same amount as the feast will give you. That, and it's going to give you a nice amount of thirst as well. And it's just got that regenerating effect. I kind of feel like it's a little bit worthless putting the herbal tea into the Mitra. It feels a bit wasteful, so I personally wouldn't make the Mitra because I think you can get better things easier and you don't have to waste a good herbal tea on that. Our next one comes to Feast of Set, and then again we have the spiced tea, something I wouldn't really want to waste again. We have soup, reptile hide, not too bad, but the spiced tea, you can see again, it's going to give us a nice warming up effect again, so if you want to heal with that, you can use it off of there. In the cold, you can use spiced tea. It's very, very good that way, and it will quench you as well a slight amount. And you need herbal tea to make it as well, so I really don't see the Feast of Set being that special to actually put that amount of effort in. No. It's not. I wouldn't bother making this set or the Mitra because it's just a waste, really. You can get better feasts, really, in the end result. Then we come to the Feast of Ymir, black ice, meat strips, those two things, not hard at all. We have the roasted mushrooms. Roasted mushrooms don't really give much hunger or HP regeneration back. So I would say Feast of Ymir is still pretty good, and that it is different as well. So Feast of Ymir, yeah, go ahead and make it. I think that would be pretty good to make. It's not too wasteful on the ingredients, and you will get more out of it that way. But yeah, you choose what you want to do with that. Then we come to the Feast of Yog. Now this thing kind of does the same as the other ones, and again I have a little bit of an issue with it. Weathered skulls aren't always the easiest to get, you might have trouble with it, so that's where I'm kind of like, ooh, I maybe don't want to make so many of these, because weathered skulls are only going to be really good if I live near the Dafari all the time, so then that's my kind of gripe with it. However, bone broth is pretty easy to make, so it's not really much of a problem. However, it does give a good amount of hunger and not really thirst, but it does give health regeneration. However, I feel like you could make the bone broth a lot easier, and you can make a lot more and you wouldn't have to like put the cost into the actual feast to make it, because it doesn't give you that much. So it gives you like 52 hunger on this actual bone broth here, and then if we're to look at the Feast of Yog, you can see it gives us 75, which is not much up from there at a cheap cost. Yeah, it doesn't really give the water that the feast gives, but it does give a little bit under of the HP regeneration, so you choose what you want to do with that, but for me, it's not worth making. Then we're coming to the Fiery Hot Sea Fish Feast. This is actually really cheap. You can get tons of rare spices in the Pirate Bay Buccaneers area, and the savoury fish are really easy, so yeah, I'd say it's worth it. It gives you a nice amount of warming, it's quite cheap to make, you can just keep dining on them, so yeah, I'd say this is a good feast. Next, we're moving on to the Exotic Feast. Now, this one isn't really a problem either. Exotic flesh is pretty easy to get. Eggs are easy to get. Dried berries are easy to make. And it gives you 100 hunger and 100 health regeneration. One of the cheaper ways to heal you up in the cold area. And a strong warming effect. So yeah, I'd say the Exotic Feast is a really good one to make if you're up in the cold. Definitely if you're struggling with a cold, you may want to invest in this feast. We also have the savoury one that uses kind of the same principles. It uses savoury flesh, eggs and dried berries, and it gives a good amount of healing there. For the amount of cheap cost it is, yeah, I'd say this is pretty good actually to make. I would recommend it if you want a little bit of heat. However, if you're going to go straight into the cold, you might as well just switch to the Exotic Feast. The same can really be said with the Feral Feast. It does give you that warming light. I probably wouldn't make it myself, however, you know, there might be circumstances you may want to use it to just give you that hunger. The mid-tier ones are more about feeding you, not really watering you, but they will heat you up, which is a nice effect. I wish we had a cold one though. We don't have a cold food yet. Perhaps we should have like a salad or something, an icy salad for a feast. That would be good. But yeah, that's pretty much all the feasts there, and that's their properties. Let me know what you think, what you use the most, what is your favourite in general, and why you like it. That's my take on the feasts, that's my opinion, and that's what I recommend. So, if you want to make a feast, maybe Decado and Jebel-Sag would probably be the more worthy doing out there. And then the rest of the god feasts are pretty much the same, and then your other feasts just kind of give you that warming effect, and that's what they're for. So decide what you want to do with it. Out of the god ones, it's definitely going to be Jebel-Sag, Decado, and Ymir for me is probably the more useful ones out of the other ones. The other ones pretty much do the same thing. You can make them if you want to, however, just bear in mind some of the original things that make them may not be worth putting into the feast, because you can use them as a good thing on their own. And the rest of them are pretty decent on their own because they're pretty cheap to make. So yeah, you get the kind of idea. Anyway, that's enough from me today. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!